Welcome to the Weekly Dose, a Pharmacy Times broadcast bringing you the latest clinical updates, regulatory decisions, and expert insights shaping the pharmacy profession. I'm Danielle Valletti, and today I'm joined by Kennedy Ferruggia.
Each week, we break down the top stories impacting pharmacists across specialties, from clinical practice and emerging therapies to regulatory updates and patient care. Let's begin with this week's top story.
This week's top story focuses on a landmark new guideline that could reshape how clinicians approach some of the most common chronic diseases in healthcare. A joint guideline published by the American Heart Association, American College of Cardiology, American Diabetes Association, and American Society of Nephrology establishes the first ever evidence-based framework for cardiovascular-kidney-metabolic, or CKM syndrome. The guideline recognizes that obesity, type 2 diabetes, chronic kidney disease, and cardiovascular disease are deeply interconnected and should no longer be managed as separate conditions.
Central to the guidance is a new 4-stage CKM classification system designed to help clinicians identify risk earlier and intervene before patients progress to advanced cardiovascular disease. The recommendations also call for more comprehensive screening, including assessment of kidney function, metabolic health, and cardiovascular risk, and social determinants of health.
The guideline also formally incorporates GLP-1 receptor agonists into CKM-specific recommendations for select patients with obesity and type 2 diabetes who have additional cardiovascular risk factors. According to Dave Dixon, PharmD, a co-author of the guideline, the message is clear. Clinicians should move beyond treating obesity, diabetes, kidney disease, and cardiovascular risk as separate medication decisions and build coordinated treatment plans that lower risk across the entire CKM spectrum.
The guidance also emphasizes integrative care and specifically highlights the important role pharmacists can play in coordinating therapy, monitoring outcomes, improving adherence, and helping patient access evidence-based treatments. For pharmacists, the guideline represents a significant opportunity to become key members of CKM care teams as health systems increasingly move towards integrated chronic disease management. It has also been a busy few weeks on the conference circuit, with Pharmacy Times covering two of the largest meetings in healthcare: the American Society of Clinical Oncology annual meeting and the American Diabetes Association scientific sessions.
ASCO 2026 took place May 29 through June 2nd in Chicago and brought together oncology professionals from around the world to discuss the latest advances in cancer treatment. Among the highlights from our coverage was the Phase 3 Proteus trial, where Mary Ellen Taplin, MD, discussed how perioperative apalutamide may help improve outcomes for patients with high-risk localized prostate cancer and potentially establish a new standard of care in the curative intent setting.
We also covered new data from the Phase 3 Preservera breast cancer trial evaluating giredestrant plus palbociclib in ER-positive, HER-negative metastatic breast cancer. Although the study did not meet its predefined statistical significance threshold, investigators reported a clinically meaningful improvement in progression-free survival, and the combination is now under FDA priority review in the adjuvant setting.
These stories represent just a small portion of our ASCO coverage, which included dozens of interviews, abstract analysis, and expert perspective across hematology and oncology. Meanwhile, ADA 2026 took place June 5th through 8th in New Orleans, where Pharmacy Times covered emerging developments in diabetes care, clinical pharmacy services, and cardiometabolic medicine.
One notable presentation showed that a pharmacist-led refill authorization program eliminated approximately 3,750 refill requests from endocrinology provider inboxes in 2025, highlighting the growing value pharmacists bring to chronic disease management and team-based care.
We also spoke with John Boos, MD, PhD, about updates to upcoming ADA and EASD hyperglycemia guidance. Among the proposed changes is a recommendation that GLP-1 receptor agonists and SGLT2 inhibitors be considered from the time of type 2 diabetes diagnosis, reflecting a shift toward earlier use of disease-modifying therapies and a broader, more holistic approach to patient care.
And there's even more conference coverage ahead. On June 18th and 19th, Pharmacy Times and PTCE will host Oncology Pharmacist Connect, developed in partnership with HOPA. The meeting will focus on translating some of the most impactful data presented at ASCO and EHA into real-world oncology pharmacy practice through continuing education sessions, panel discussions, and collaborative roundtables.
Also taking place this month is McKesson Idea Share in Denver, one of the premier meetings for independent community pharmacists focused on innovation, patient care, business growth, and the future of community pharmacy practice. Be sure to visit pharmacytimes.com for complete conference coverage and ongoing updates. Turning now to policy news, where several major regulatory developments are impacting diabetes care, infectious disease prevention, and pain management.
The FDA has approved Afrezza inhalation powder for children and adolescents aged 6 and older with type 1 or type 2 diabetes. The approval makes Afrezza the first and only ultra-rapid acting inhaled insulin approved for pediatric patients, offering a needle-free mealtime insulin option that may help reduce treatment burden for some families.
The FDA has also approved ensiltravir, marketed as Excova, for post-exposure prophylaxis of COVID-19 in adults and adolescents 12 years and older. The oral antiviral becomes the first and only oral option approved to help prevent symptomatic COVID-19 following exposure.
And finally, the FDA granted Breakthrough Therapy designation to VER-01, an investigational cannabis-derived treatment for chronic low back pain. The designation follows positive Phase 3 findings showing significant reductions in pain intensity, improvements in sleep and physical function, and no evidence of dependency or withdrawal. This week's stories highlight the growing importance of coordinated care, integrative practice, and innovation across pharmacy and healthcare.
From new CKM syndrome guidelines and major conference findings to FDA approvals and emerging therapies, pharmacists continue to play a critical role in translating evidence into patient care. You can read more about all of today's stories on pharmacytimes.com, and be sure to follow us on social media at @PharmacyTimes. For Pharmacy Times, I'm Danielle Valletti.
And I'm Kennedy Ferruggia. Thank you for watching the Weekly Dose. We'll see you next week.